Hello and welcome to Across the Narrow Sea. This is a small talk show about Game of Thrones. We will focus on 2.0, but we're talking to different communities. So there will also be some talk about 1.0. The Narrow Sea is, of course, the Atlantic, so we will be focusing on European metas that are perhaps less visible than some of the American metas in the current podcast environment. And today we have with us not just one, but two people from the extremely successful German team from this year's Stahleck. Helmut Hohberger and Daniel Göbl. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi guys, thanks for having us.
We were discussing having this in German because I studied German, but since the only thing I learned was to say Entschuldigung, ich habe nicht meine Aufgabe gemacht, we decided to do this in English. Before we start, we have a very serious question peering into the depths of your soul. If you were in A Song of Ice and Fire, which character would you be?
Which character I would like to be or I would be?
You would be. Oh, liking to be is nice. But sadly, we cannot all be the Red Viper, so you'll have to satisfy with being someone else. Who would you be, Daniel?
Oh.
Who is most into you?
I mean, it's a very fucked up world there, so I think really hard decision. I think maybe Robert Arryn, because he's pretty safe up in the Eyrie.
Safe and, breastfeeding.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only guy
What's not to like?
Yeah.
Helmut, how about you?
I think I would be Samuel Tarly's dumb cousin.
Samuel Tarly?
No, Samuel Tarly's dumb cousin.
Dumb cousin?
Yes.
See, I don't even remember him. Was
he wasn't in the books. He was not important enough to be in them.
I could see you being Samuel Tarly.
Yeah, thanks. I guess. But
Okay.
I could do Samuel Tarly. No problem.
Starting with this,
As long as I'm not Sansa.
As long as you're not the Sound Surprise.
Yeah.
Samuel Tarly is the killer of White Walkers. This is not a bad role. It's knowledge and power, and he gets a girl. So that's the whole spectrum right there.
He does get a girl, kind of. That's right. So yeah, I want to be Samuel Tarly. That's a good. And he's not dead yet, is he? So
he's not dead.
Oh, sorry,
yet.
don't spoil
Yes. And from this, we have another. So now you've gotten your image of yourself out there. We have another tradition on this cast, which is that you introduce each other. So Daniel, who have you brought to this cast?
Helmut.
So who is he? Who is in the community? What's his story?
Okay. Well, Helmut is my very good metamate from Munich. I think we know each other for, how long is it? 6 years? I think it's 6 years.
2011.
Yeah? 2011. Okay.
Yeah.
2011. Yeah, I was playing Game of Thrones already 5 years when he came, but I think now he played more games than I did. And so he's very passionate. I think he's like the solid foundation of the Munich meta, who is organizing a lot, like the weekly rounds, and yeah, I think he's the most important man in Munich when it comes to Thrones, definitely.
That's not bad praise, Helmut.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Puts a lot of pressure on me now.
So you're learning things already. So Helmut, who did you bring?
I brought Daniel Göbl with me, and I think he just might have the distinction to be the longest-serving player of a Game of Thrones in all of Germany. I don't know. Daniel, do you know of anybody who started with or before you that is still playing? Because I cannot think of anybody.
No, from Germany, I don't know anybody, or at least this year Stahleck, or last year Stahleck, I didn't see anybody from Germany who was there when I started. So
Daniel was there right from the beginning, and
German older man.
I'm sure he has a lot of tales to tell from the early days, and he's a Stahleck first-time participant, I think. I mean, when it was taking place the first time, I think he was there. Weren't you, Daniel?
I think it was actually already a second time when I was there the first time. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it was already. But I mean, it was not the official Game of Thrones Stahleck. It was the Middle Earth tournament, and we were like just a bunch of freaks down in the kitchen and played this weird game. Yeah.
So we actually asked around a bit about what questions to ask you guys, and the story of Stahleck is a request from a viewer on Facebook. So we will certainly get into that. But I want to know before that, if you started 10 years ago, what got you into the game? How did you hear about it?
Well, it was the books, I would say. Although I always liked games, I'm not the typical gamer, I would say. And I was a very big fan of the books. And I had this paperback books where when you finished the last page, there was some advertisement. And there was an advertisement for the game.
Oh, clever!
And although it was 10 years ago, we already had internet back then. So I went to the internet and checked if somebody's playing it. And I found a comic shop close to the city I studied. It was in Erlangen. And, well, I went there one evening. It was October 2005, and they that was when the winter edition was released, the CCG winter edition, and they had like a release draft tournament. So I watched them play, and I didn't play on this day, but since then I'm part of the crew, I would say.
And you haven't stopped, like you didn't have a hiatus. You played for 10 years on a regular basis. That's fantastic.
And I still like it as much as on my first day.
I don't know who's the longest standing player in Sweden, but certainly not 10 years.
We had one guy from Sweden in Stahleck in the very beginning, but I don't remember his name.
Is it
Ingemar?
Yeah. That sounds familiar.
He came back Ingemar for his second edition after having a long break in first edition.
Yeah, he kind of skipped first edition. So he played a lot of CCG and then not much first edition. Now he's back for this 2.0.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
And very active right now. So he'll come to Stahleck for sure, right, Andreas?
I think so. I would be surprised if he didn't.
All right.
That's nice.
And Helmut being the big gamer over there, we can see your beautiful, beautiful games in the background. Was this your first card game? Was this your first? How were you introduced to it?
It was actually my first customizable card game. The whole Magic wave went past me. I'm very lucky to say, because if I had gotten into Magic back in 1993, 94, I think my finances and probably my mind would be in very bad shape now. And I always steered clear of these randomized booster games. I never wanted to get into them, and I never did. And I got into this game specifically because I learned that it was distributed in the LCG model.
Okay.
And that was, I remember very well, in the fall of 2010, because my wife was very pregnant and we were looking for games we could play together. And I had just bought Battles of Westeros. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
It's a big conflict game with lots of plastic miniatures. Quite a good game, but it has a huge footprint. You have to spend like 1 hour to set it all up, and this was not the kind of game we wanted to play with my wife. And then I saw that they had the LCG core set, and I thought, well, why not try a card game? And I got it, and my wife, she approved because I was saying, oh, if we don't want to, we don't have to get any expansions. We just can play with the core set. And she said, yeah, right. And I said, I was very encouraged by this because she was thinking it was a good idea. I felt so. This is how it all started. And then I got her, to celebrate the birth of our boy, I got her the Stark expansion, and she was very happy. She was.
So you played for 5 years? And
yeah,
then
2010. Yeah.
And what is the story of the German meta throughout this? So you're both in Munich, but you must know the people in other places. How has it grown? How is it?
You want to talk about the beginnings, Daniel?
Yeah, maybe. So when I went into the game in 2005, there was a big rise of the players in Germany because that was the point when they introduced the German cards. So the CCG model got German cards with the release of the Winter Edition. And of course, more players came into the game. And but unfortunately, it didn't went so well with the German cards. So I think after 1 year, so after the winter block, they already decided that they don't produce anymore in German. So, and then it went down again. So it was kind of a big boost in the beginning with the winter block, which lasted for 1 year, but then not so much. But yeah, I mean, the game was good back in these days. So we had like metas in Munich, in Cologne, in Nuremberg. I would also want to put in the Salzburg meta from Austria with Wolfgang, because it's so close to Germany, and we are kind of, we always had like, when there were tournaments, we went to Salzburg, they went to Munich, and that was nice. It was around when you went like to regional, you had around, I don't know, 30 to 40 players. So it was all right.
That's quite big. So,
yeah.
So how big is this? So you had a German card pool, and you had a German card pool for 1.0. Is there a German card pool for 2.0 as well?
We are on the same release schedule as everybody else.
Same release schedule, but there's still German cards coming out.
Yes.
Yeah. But I have to say, in the CCG area, there was no German card pool. It was just that there were German cards released.
Yes.
But of course, you were also allowed to bring from the older blocks, like the Valyrian block, the English cards, and mix it up. So
I'm wondering how big is this difference in Germany? How, like you're saying that when they introduced the German cards, they got a lot more players in the CCG. To what extent are Germans hesitant to use the English language? I mean, both of yours English is fine. It can't be a problem for you to play with English cards.
Well, I guess it's also a little bit about marketing, because if you have like a German company there promoting the game, and having price support and everything, so I think that also drew more people. So you had like, the posters in the shops and everything, and I think not every shop sold the English cards, maybe. And because we Germans we are used to that everything gets translated, the movies and so on.
Yeah.
And,
because you don't need to translate the board games, because you're making all of the best board games.
Yeah, so
you had this meta, and you went into 1.0. And 1.0 in Germany was very special, because you somehow got a different release schedule, or what happened?
I think I am qualified to talk about that, because this is touching on when I started the game. When I started the game in 2010, there was not much of a German scene, because the LCG switch killed off most of the scene that had been there.
Was Daniel sitting somewhere playing by himself? Sorry, go on.
When I was starting, we had a very small meta in Munich, basically 3 or 4 players hanging on by a thread. And the Salzburg guys were still playing. There was a small meta in Nuremberg, also close to us. And there were some few guys in the west and in the north, but there were very few, very small groups. There were no tournaments. There was just one tournament a year in Salzburg where we went to. And it took some time for things to get better. And we got a huge boost when, as you hinted at, when the new German translation of the LCG came out. It was around 2012. So what they did, they translated the core set and then all the deluxe expansions, which were all out by then. And then they produced chapter packs when FFG printed new chapters or when they reprinted old ones. The German company produced those chapter packs in German. And this is what you were hinting at before. Also, this produced a meta game that was entirely different from the international meta game. So used an entirely different card pool. We had Corset at the next expansion at first, and then we had some chapter pack cycles, but they were coming out in a totally different order than originally. So this also led to a somewhat insular German meta game, because the German players who began the game at this point, they had played with a totally different card pool. And some of those players who began the game at that point with the German cards quickly switched over to English cards and bought the whole card pool because they wanted to go to Stahleck or they wanted to have the bigger card pool. And others just stuck with the German cards, just as is natural. And it's also then Daniel and me, we both began at a time when there was no German cards, or at least I did. So we had to play with English cards, but a lot of the ones who started then, they just bought the German cards, and there are some players who are feeling more comfortable with German cards. That's definitely a fact.
And this kept at least some people from traveling to other countries and playing in international tournaments.
Exactly, absolutely. It was basically the old players who were traveling internationally and some of the new ones who quickly got into the German card pool. For example, Jannis, our team captain from Stahleck, and some of his metamates, they very quickly got into the big game and started doing very well, very fast. But others just stuck with the German cards and went to the German tournaments with had only the German card pool. So we had a part of the method that was more internationally minded and part of the method that was more like focused on what was happening in Germany.
And moving ahead to nowadays, so in other countries we've seen quite a large growth in how many players there are when 2.0 was released. Is it the same in Germany? Are you seeing a lot of new players in 2.0?
Yes, I would say. We've been to I mean, again, I talk about Salzburg now. So Salzburg, it's 10 kilometers to the German border or something. So I was there at a tournament in, I think it was December or January. And there was like, Helmut, how many players were there? Like 30?
Well, it is this traditional winter tourney. They have had it like forever, every year, around Christmas or in January, and it was the biggest winter tourney ever. It was like way over 30 players, and before we usually had something between 12 and 20 maybe. And this time I think it was 35 or something.
So almost doubled.
Yeah, definitely.
That's fantastic. I mean, if we can hold on to this many people, this is going to be a way bigger game than we're used to.
Yeah,
definitely.
But there's also one special aspect that is unique to the German national meta, in my opinion, or as far as I can see, because remember, the German version of 1.0 was introduced quite late. I think it was late 2012, beginning of 2013. So when the announcement for the reboot came, a lot of players in Germany had just bought into the game and had made big investments, and the game was not nearly anywhere like finished, you know. And so I do think that in the very first months after the announcement, there was quite a bit of outrage in the German meta, and at this point, quite a few players just quit. This is very different from the international scene, because in almost every country, as far as I saw, people were very understanding and even looking forward to the switch and to the reboot. But in Germany, I think a lot of the players who started 1.0 shortly before, they quit, and we had a downturn, which you can also see when you look at how many players participated at the German nationals. The year before, it was like 50 players, and the tournament after the announcement of the reboot was a lot fewer players. So, but I expected this to go up steeply now again with being generally new players.
That's what we're seeing here as well, and it's hard to determine to what extent they'll stay on. But certainly, some of the people that we see coming are very enthusiastic and very into the game, so they should stick around. So you have your own national and so on, of course, but the main tournament in Germany every year has to be Stahleck. And you were there for the first one, Daniel. How many people?
Yes.
What was this when it started?
So I was at Stahleck the first time. That was in January or February 2006. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it was the first time Game of Thrones was played in Stahleck or the second time, because it was not an official Game of Thrones tournament. The castle was occupied by Middle-earth gamers. The old Middle-earth, which is not produced anymore for a long time. And so Wolfgang made sure that we had like a little spot at the kitchen, you know, where you always get your lunch and everything.
Quickly explain to our American viewers that.
Oh yeah, sure.
So Stahleck is the largest tournament in Game of Thrones in the world, and Wolfgang is the person who fixes everything. Now go on, Daniel.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, the whole castle, like the Knights Room, you know, where the finals usually are played and everything, was all reserved for the Middle-earth gamers. And yeah, the Game of Thrones players, they met down in the kitchen. And it was around, it's hard to guess, but I think we were like between 20 and 30 people. You know, it's 10 years ago, but I think it was like 20 to 30 people. Mostly Germans and Austrians. Somebody from Hungary was there, I remember, and yeah. But it was kind of a cool feeling, because we were a little bit the outsiders, you know. So you had like 200 Middle-earth gamers there, and
you had your own clique.
Yeah, and they came down to eat, and we were playing this game nobody knew. So that was cool, and we. I don't remember what we played. We played on the first night. We played a draft, because it was still CCG, so it was perfect for drafting. On Saturday we played the Joust, and I still remember there was some crazy Baratheon Knight stakes around, which could win the game in the first round.
in the CCG, the cards were a lot more powerful, huh?
Yeah, sometimes it was really crazy what you could do in CCG. Yeah, some cards were really crap too. So sometimes you had really this huge gap when you open the booster pack. You know, you had like this crazy card, and then 2 cards you wouldn't give to your worst enemy.
Go on.
Yeah, and on Sunday there was kind of a special tournament. It was a little bit like the team tournament already. So it was like a meta tournament, I think. So the metas played for points, and then I think the meta with the most points in the end won or something.
Sounds like a slightly simpler setup than the team tournaments nowadays, which...
Yeah, I mean, maybe not as professional as nowadays, but yeah, it was kind of... It went in this direction a bit.
So from those 20 people in the basement, it grew into a tournament that's bigger than the castle now. Andreas, do you know how many we were last time?
Over 200?
225 in the class.
Say that again, Helmut?
225 in the class.
225 people. And have you been throughout, Daniel?
No. I have to admit, I was not every year. Not every year.
Almost.
I think I missed, like... I have to say, although I never quitted the game, I had a little downer. And I had the downer that was after the switch from CCG to LCG.
Yeah.
And it was not because I was mad because my cards lost the value. But the beginning of 1.0 LCG, for me the game was a little bit boring. You know, you had the core set, then you had the first 6 chapter packs that did not fit the core set, because they were still designed for CCG when they decided to make the cut. So I think the first like half year was a little bit not so great, and that was also when the game was on a down. So the Munich meta died completely, except me and Ulrich, who's not playing anymore. But it was like him and me, and nobody else. So it was like the down point, but then when more cards came, more players came, the game got better again, and I went over this down point.
So throughout this time, what's your most impressive result?
The most impressive result?
For all these Stahlecks?
Well, I have to say, for me, the Chows is not the most important tournament. For me, the most important tournament in Game of Thrones is the Stahleck Friday night CCG Chaos Draft. And so I also want to say hello to my friends from the Czech Republic and Spain who sit there every year with me. So we're always the same guys. And yeah, I was able to win it in 2013.
Okay, you won that. That's not bad. It must have been 10 players.
Yeah. No, it was like, I think we were like 20 to 25 or something. I think you can ask Wolfgang, he should have the statistics somewhere. So, but it's always fun because we have like booster packs from all CCG blocks, you know, from the first one, from the last one, and you can create so crazy decks with it, you know. Like in the last Stahleck, when we played this, I created a deck which was able to gain 12 power in one challenge phase, because you know you have no restriction list, you have no boundaries, and because back then there was also rotation, you know, so you have really now a lot of possibilities to create crazy decks. And yeah, it's very funny every year.
And Helmut, turning to you, how many Stahlecks have you been to?
5, I think. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes, 5.
Okay. So you started out... Tell me again. So you started out, you had a couple of years, and then you started going to Stahleck, and then you just never went back?
No. I started out late in 2010, and in September, and shortly after that was Stahleck, and I was reading about Stahleck on the forums, and it was the year Gualdo won, and I still remember his victory post, he posted at 3 o'clock in the morning, because they were pussies back then, they only played until 3. So I was intrigued by this great tournament, and it was clear for me that I would go the next year. And I did very well. I totally overperformed at my first Stahleck and made top 8, which is totally crazy for me. I did better than I could expect to do. And I was hooked from the beginning. Stahleck is just we all have different personalities, and my gamer personality and my gamer life, Stahleck is the best thing ever. This is my most favorite thing in the whole world, and it got better every year because the main thing for me about Game of Thrones and about going to tournaments is the community and the people. And every year you meet more friends than the year before, and you always make new friends, and the old ones are there too. And last year, the year before, it was like I felt I knew half the people there, and it took like hours to just hug and greet everybody of your very good Game of Thrones fan. So this is why I game in the first place. I'm competitive too. I want to win. And I try everything to win, of course, but the main thing is the great community and the sense of belonging together and sharing a thing you love. This is just the best thing.
I completely agree. The community and, Stahleck is just a fantastic place to be and just be in it and play some. I also... Since I started going to Stahleck, I haven't missed a year, and I'm not planning to miss this year either. But considering how much it is a community, what was that, Helmut?
I want to share. I shouldn't do this live on air over the internet. If my wife finds out about this, she will kill me. But I swear, don't tell anybody else. But when we were thinking about conceiving our second child, I said we have to start 2 months later because if it works now, I'm going to miss Stahleck, and I can't have that. This is a true story.
That's commitment. Oh. That's commitment.
So this is how big Stahleck is.
Although you said that if you started that early, you're going to miss Stahleck, you could also have said, if we start this early, I might miss the birth of the child. Because I will be in Stahleck.
I think that's what I said, but I didn't want to come off as a jerk here. No. I was talking about different personalities, and I think this is one thing I might miss Stahleck for. I say I might.
It's the only game that matters.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm surprised by how few Germans there are at Stahleck. The competition is in Germany. There's clearly a live and big meta. You're talking about tournaments with 30 people, 40 people, and so on. How many are you usually? Am I just missing you? Are you shy around the edges? Or how many Germans are usually represented at Stahleck?
Actually, I'm happy that we are so many now. Because back in 2011, there were almost none. I think I don't have I don't know the numbers right now off the top of my head, but there was like 120 players, and I'd be surprised if more than 10 had been German. And last year we were, I think, it must have been the biggest national group, and.
I was going to say that this year it felt very different. The German presence was much more.
Oh.
Well, only from the year before, this was a big difference.
Yes. This is because of what I was talking about earlier. We had a totally different national game, and this also led to a certain insularity. And a lot of the players who only played with a German card pool, they didn't really feel Stahleck, And even though we had a German card pool tournament there from the very first time, these were totally different metagames. And also before, when I started out, as I said, there was almost no German national metagame. There were a few very small, very isolated local metas, but there was no bigger German meta, and the game was really in a very bad state back then. And in 2011, if you look at the list of participants, there are lots of Spaniards there, lots of Italians, lots of French players, but very few Germans. And this really changed even last year, and it's bound to change even more, I think, in the future.
It's going to be a lot this year, is what you're saying.
I would assume so, yes.
Because not only were there plenty of Germans last year, you had a very successful year. I mean, Helmut, you came in second in Joust.
Yeah, and I told you before that I was also overperforming in my very first Stahleck. And the funny thing is, I was playing basically the same deck last year that I played in my very first Stahleck. And I was thinking, what the hell was I doing for 5 years? Where have you been all my life, more or less?
Why bringing other decks?
Sorry?
Why bringing other decks?
Yeah. Why did I ever play this Targaryen shit? I don't know.
You were playing Greyjoy Choke?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, a chokey deck, yeah. Not
Chokey
full
deck,
board
yeah.
choke, but chokey stuff.
And this is your playstyle, robbing the other person of opportunities.
I'm not sure I have a playstyle. Yeah, but if I manage to do that, I like it. Yeah, my motto is: if the other guy has fun playing against you, you're doing it wrong.
I like that. So not only did Helmut come in second, but both of you, Helmut and Daniel, you were in the German team. So for those who don't know, on Sunday we have a national competition. The 3 best player from the Joust for each country represent their meta, and we duke it out. And there's a big system with people. Never mind the big system. But throughout the day, Germany as a team is 3 players. You lose a match if 2 players lose a game during that setup. You didn't lose a match. You won every match, and in the games, the actual games that people are playing, you said you lost only 2 throughout the day.
Yes.
Daniel lost 1, and
Janus lost 1 in the final against Spain.
Yeah. And you didn't. That's a very, very impressive. That's going to be hard to top.
Well, yeah, maybe. But if you lose a lot of games, then you don't get to go to the final. So, but yeah, we were on a roll, more or less. We were very happy. We had a good year, didn't we, Daniel?
So how did you prepare? I mean, how do you prepare for big tournaments in Germany? Do you have extra? Do you play extra games? Are you set up? Are you training? Are you serious about it? Or are you more, well, we'll see what happens? Are you talking deck strategies with each other? What's happening before, Daniel?
Well, I think it's that everybody has a little bit different approach here. I usually don't train. It's just when Stahleck rolls up, I always install Octagon, and then I try to make it run because it never runs on my computer very well. And just to make a lot of games with the deck to have, not making small mistakes, because I think when you lose a game in Game of Thrones, it's mostly because of a small mistake you can easily afford if you are used to your deck. So that's the only training I do. We usually meet once a week and we just play. And so Helmut, I'm not sure, but it's not like in a boot camp when Stahleck is coming. It's more casual gaming, I would say.
So more casual. You don't share decks with each other. You don't give comments on each other's decks. There's no communal preparation.
I mean, of course, we discuss. When we play, we discuss, and but it's not that we have it's not that we have our approach. For example, okay, now we build the 3 strongest decks right now, and we play against them. So it's not very systematically how we do it. I think we just play the decks we have, we like. We discuss it. Of course, we know what's going on out there. But I think it's a very casual way.
That's very surprising, considering how well you did. You think you would more, this is German efficiency, this is how we do it.
The thing is, I don't really like this efficient deck so much. You know, it's like how to say. I like to play decks I like. You know, I don't care if they are like the best decks or if they are just medium. You know, it's I want decks where I enjoy them to play. Where I don't have to think too much, because if you play for more than around 10 hours a day, you know, you should have something which goes light from your hand. And so yeah, I just take a deck that makes fun, doesn't give me headaches, and then we see where we come.
All right. So now we're in second edition, right? How are you guys enjoying second edition so far?
I like it. I really loved first edition, and when they announced the reboot, I was in two minds about it, because I was partly sad to see it go and partly looking forward to the new things. And I'm happy to say that I really like second edition, and I still think first edition was an awesome game, and it was not at its end or anything, but I don't have this separation pain anymore. It's gone, you know, and I don't feel the need to rehash it every time. It's in the past for me, and I'm really enjoying second edition, and I'm looking forward to do stuff with it. And I think it's amazing how versatile the game is already now with such a small card pool. They did a really good job with the design there, in my opinion. And we have the core set and 3 chapter packs now, and already now it's starting to get really hard to make this decision which last 3 cards to cut, you know. And
I agree.
so,
that has gone quicker than I thought.
Yeah. Me too. I'm very surprised. But so we left 1.0 behind us, and you being a rules lawyer.
So what people might not know is that Helmut is one of maybe 5 people who actually knew the rules to Game of Thrones 1.0.
Oh yeah. So you have always been active on the rules forums, and you have always enforced them. You've been judges and stuff, right? How are you enjoying the new rule sets?
I absolutely fucking hate them, because how am I supposed to win games now that everybody knows the rules? It really sucks.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah, hey, come on. In Stahleck 2011, I won a game against the reigning European melee champion, the guy who designed Marguerite Tyrell, because he didn't know that Wintertime Marauders could discard and duplicate on his Viper. You know? And that was great. If you suck as a player, you just have to beat them with the rules, and this is gone now. So,
do you feel like the rules are they much simpler, really? Because I feel they're a little bit simpler, but are they really much simpler now?
I do think that they cleaned up some things very well, but it's not. Everything is not that as easy as some people make it out to be. There are still difficult situations, and there are still situations where we actually have to ask FFG for rulings, because it just is not totally clear. So it's not as easy as it as we hoped it might be, but overall it's much cleaner, especially when it comes to the templating on the cards. This is a very important point.
But could this also be an effect of there just being a smaller card pool? Do you think there's a risk that when the card pool grows, we start to come into almost 1.0 rules problematic? I mean, you mentioned Wintertime Marauder. We don't have that card yet.
I think there's always a risk, but for that to happen, FFG and the design team have to screw up, because the framework they set is very solid, in my opinion. The rules framework is very solid, and especially, as I just said, the card templating is very solid, in my opinion. And, well, you can never preclude any designer coming in the future deciding to get fancy and releasing the equivalent of Call of the Three-Eyed Crow. which for the new players was a rules-wise broken and timing-wise impossible part from the very beginning, and they should have noticed it, but they didn't. But they set themselves up for these things not to happen anymore. So unless they screw up in the future, I think they will manage to or should manage to keep the game clean, timing-wise and food-wise.
I'm hoping you're right. I was a little bit worried now when Nymeria came, because she had the same kind of non-intuitive way of writing about taking icons.
Yeah, to be very honest, I'm not at the height of my rules lawyering right now because I've been taking things very casually with 2.0 so far.
Right,
so I'm not that much into discussions, so I'm not current on.
No, but as a 1.0 player, we know that you can take icons that are not there, and then it becomes -1 icon and so on. But this is something you have to learn. This is not the way anyone who just starts playing looks at that card and thinks. And I think with a different plating, it could have been different. But we're starting to see this slip-ins where you need to know the cards or how things act out in Game of Thrones to actually know it.
I agree with you there to a certain extent. I think it is very hard for the people who designed 1.0 to write the rules in a way that there are no assumptions of how things should work. And I think overall they did a marvelous job, but now it turns out at some points that they could have worded some rules a little bit better, and some of these assumptions just crept in. I mean, because they know, and we all know how some things are supposed to be played, but a new player, especially one with a background in customizable card games and with a rules lawyer background, reads some things differently, and sometimes they can legitimately point to a rules text and say, well, this does not strictly follow from the text. And we, as the old players, are sometimes surprised then because it's all natural to us. So, yes, I agree that this kind of thing now turns out to be there at some points, but I refuse to see it as a flaw of the or an error on the part of the design team, because I think it's very hard to write this from scratch without making these assumptions. And overall, I repeat myself, but I'm convinced overall the rules writing and the card templating is very solid. And well, the other stuff.
I certainly hope you're right. Moving from the rules to the fun decks, which means we move from Helmut to Daniel all the time. Right now, 2.0, these are the fun decks. What would you bring to Stahleck right now?
Tyrell.
Tyrell Fealty?
No, I would bring Tyrell, Banner to the Wolf, and I would put in all the ladies, all the knights, everything, and
rose it up.
Yeah, 3 times pleasure box to get all the cards, because the -1 gold will not bother me because I'm done at plot 3 probably. So that would be my deck right now.
I like it.
Definitely.
Is this common to play rush decks now in Germany? Is this coming about in 2.0? We're seeing the first rush decks?
Well, I think it depends what house you play. I think there's not like a trend that people like this, like more control or like more rush. But I think if you play houses like Tyrell, I think it's the best way to go. And what I found out in 2.0 right now, it's like when you get behind the power, it's very hard to catch up. I have the feeling, because you don't have Valar. So right now, I think power is much more important than it was in 1.0, because if you get behind it, it's really hard, I think.
Right, whereas in 1.0, you could get the kind of board control where you can block all his challenges and win all your challenges and just
Yeah.
I agree. Is there a house that you feel is underrepresented now in Germany, or one that's overrepresented? What kind of decks are you seeing right now in your metas?
Well, I think mostly played is Targaryen right now, or that's what I see the most. Especially on the tournament we had in Salzburg, there were like, I don't know, but I think at least 10 to 12 Targaryen decks. And underplayed, I would say, is the Night Watch, because I think they're still missing something to make them a house. Although after watching Göbl talk, I decided to make to use them as a banner faction with Lannister, because Lannister is kind of a no-brainer house, and I thought, okay, you can just throw in 12 Nightwatch cards and see what it does. I think you can play them as a banner house, but it's not really something for its own right now, but I guess we will get there.
I don't like being dependent on all those monocons.
Yeah.
I find it hard to be consistent with so many monocons.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you're seeing a lot of Targaryen. And what would you play, Helmut, if it was Stahleck tomorrow?
I would play Night's Watch with a Banner of the Watch agenda. I'm not telling you what I'm going to play. You're going to attack against me. Come on.
I figure there are cards coming out until then. You might change.
No, I'm joking. I have to start with telling you that I have not been playing very much lately, and I'm not very up to date with the current trends. So maybe if I say something stupid, just be lenient with me. But I think, especially now with Chapter Pack 2 and 3 out, I think Greyjoy is starting to be in a very good shape. Some people always like Greyjoy a lot. I was not that enamored with Greyjoy with just Corset and Chapter Pack 1, but I think they are in a very good place now. And also Lannister is in a very good place, obviously. And I think Martell is an awesome banner house now. So the decks I'm thinking about now are Lannister with Lannister Son and Greyjoy Son. Bara was very dominant earlier. I'm not sure. I think they are still very strong, and Martell is also a very good banner house for Bara. But I feel Bara might have gotten a little bit worse with the new Greyjoy cards, the newly made Lord, because they are, in my experience, I might be totally off, but they are quite dependent on the red keep, and this one got more vulnerable now. So yeah. If you ask me, what I want to try now is Lenny Son, Greyjoy Son, and Bara Son.
I like Greyjoy's Son. I like the way removing icons goes together with getting unopposed. I think it's a very natural fit in a weird way. We're gonna talk a little bit more about your thoughts about the game right now, especially. So we recently had a chapter pack release, and we don't do chapter pack reviews on this show because they're way too long. We don't have time for that. I want to talk about a few specific cards and see get your Gregor Clegane. What do you think of this card, for instance?
Awesome.
That's it. Also, just a great card, fantastic, well designed. That's it.
Well, I have to say what I like about Gregor is that, I mean, he's not that great, you know, when the ability is not hitting, you know, it's like just a huge guy with a lot of cost. But I like this effects, you know, when there's a possibility that you have an effect like that, you know, it makes the game much more spectacular or more.
See, I'm on the opposite in this. I don't like it when the game is determined by that kind of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I see in front of me, and I know that it's very unlikely, but I see in front of me someone sitting there, and they're clearly losing the game, and I have the whole control, and then, they win a challenge with him, they kill off my 7 gold character, and then that's just the end of the game for me. That hasn't happened yet, but that's what I see when I look into those cold eyes. Do you like these random effects that they're doing in Lannister, Helmut? Do you think this is a fun theme?
Well, I think, I personally, I don't mind them too much, but looking at it from a broader perspective, I'm not a playtester. I'm not involved in anything, but my personal feeling is that this is very deliberate, because what this kind of effect, what it leads to, is narrowing the gap between the good players and the more casual players somewhat. And I think this is very deliberate, to just draw the more casual players in a little bit more. And the flip side of that is that the very competitive players who want to have a lot of control over their decks and their games, they get turned off by this kind of thing. So you have to weigh this in a way.
Yes.
And so that's but this is why I think this is deliberate. You all remember the uproar that Heads on Spikes caused, lots of discussions about that. But this is exactly like the Pickler or Gregor. This is exactly this fault line. And I, from a global perspective, I don't mind it, and if it works and draws casual players, or helps draw them and then keep them in, and then keep them invested in the game, I'm all for it. I totally understand the really top competitive players if they don't like it. Personally, I'm fine with it because I don't consider myself to be at the very top of all players. I've overperformed at Stahleck in 1 or 2 tournaments, but I'm not that on that level as a player and as a deck builder. So it doesn't. I don't think it destroys my fun. At least I think that until Gregor Clegane kills my Robert the first time. Ask me again then.
See, I can imagine you winning Stahleck year after year, and then still going, I have overperformed in Stahleck for the last couple of years, but I'm really not that good. Do you have a favorite card from the King's Peace? Either of you?
I have barely played with it. I would really have to look up what's in there. I do. The newly made Lord, of course, he was a very vital piece in that 2011 Greyjoy deck that took me so far. It's a champ card, so but still, on a certain level, it's kind of a stupid card. You play it and get rid of a location, but the locations he did get rid of me, get rid of for me over the years, they were also good, and I always liked it. So I have a soft spot for him. I have a big emotional attachment to the old bastard, and also I think fishing net. I've not played with these cards yet, but I think it should be totally insane, especially given that it's not terminal. I'm not sure if I like this design-wise negative attachments that are not terminal, and but still, I'm really looking forward to play with those cards.
I agree with you. I think the first one that was spoiled was Motley, and I was in the beginning I was convinced that there was just an error of the spoil, that they hadn't written terminal on it. Notion that you can play these negative attachments over and over. But it might work out fine. Attachment control. will
Maybe they
clearly be a
did.
thing.
Maybe they all missed it. Oh fuck! We forgot what? Oh, let's just run with it. Should we errata it? No. Let's just see what happens. I don't know. Maybe it's just what happens.
I mean, in 1.0, you had all of these anti-attachment cards that were never played.
Yeah.
Like binder fodder after binder fodder. And I'm happy that we won't see that the attachment will be viable in 2.0, that they made that happen. Do you have a favorite card from the chapter pack, Daniel?
Well, I would say, beside Sir Gregor, I really like the plot for the knights.
Yeah.
Well,
that's strong.
Because the funny thing is, sometimes, when I'm dreaming about winning Stahleck one day, I'm also thinking about to design a card or what would be my favorite card. And I really like trade-based decks. So, for example, Knights or Dothraki or what do the Greaters have? Raiders. And when I was thinking about if I would make a card, I would have done a very similar card to this. I would have just added some more traits. So all Knights, all Raiders, all those Rockies get renowned. And I'm very happy that they did it now, at least with the Knights trait. And
or perhaps just name a trait.
Yeah, or something like that. That would be cool too. Because the thing is, when you make a trait-based deck, it usually looks really nice, when you have a horde of Dothrakis or a horde of Raiders or something. It makes the decks really nice. And I think decks like this should be get a reward. And I think a plot like this is the right reward for that.
I like that notion. I also have a soft spot for championship cards that bring out cards from the card pool. Like we've seen these agendas that bring out events that were played before and so on. And I think this highlighting traits is another way of making sure that more cards in the card pool are played at least at some decks.
Yeah, right.
We're about to close up here. What's the immediate future of the German meta? What is the next tournament? What's coming up? What do you want to advertise?
Helmut, are you informed?
Yes, we have seen an upsurge in store championships already. We could go to a store championship almost every weekend. There are many new locations opening up in an hour or two drive away. And so good things are in store for the German meta and the German publisher. They have been organizing or will be organizing at the German nationals, not just for Thrones, but for all the FFG, LCGs, and miniature games and everything at one big weekend. So this is bound to be awesome too. So there's new betas, new players, new tournaments creeping up left and right. So this is great. But if I want to advertise one thing, it would be our local tournament, the Brawl at the Crossroads Inn, a smallish but always very, very nice and very cool tournament that happens every year in August. We don't have a fixed date yet, but you will be the first to know when we have it. And if you ever want to visit beautiful Munich and beat us at cards, you're always welcome.
That sounds lovely. We're starting a new tradition. So we're talking to these different European metas. The idea is to get kind of through Europe, and we've tried. We did France last time, now we did Germany. And we thought it would be fun if you get to pick our next conversation partners. Which meta would you like us to talk to?
Prague.
Prague?
Yeah.
There
are a lot of great metas all over Europe, and we have very friendly relations with, and but the Prague meta has a special place in my heart, which does not mean that I disregard or put down any of the others. I love all of you guys, but the Prague guys were the first ones that I met that were from the non-German-speaking countries. and they are just very good friends and very dedicated people and very great guys and girls. And Andre, who's their like mastermind, he's extremely committed to the game and very knowledgeable about it. And yeah, and they are not talked about as much as some of the more visible big metas in Europe, but they are at the very heart of the European meta game, in my opinion. And yeah, do the prog, guys.
That sounds fantastic. Highlighting metas that are not talked about enough is the goal of this. And with that, and I'm sure Andreas would like to thank you for coming on, Daniel and Helmut, and representing the German meta. And we look forward to seeing you at the Brawl at the Crossroads Inn. Maybe you'll come up here for Varberg Morgulis. And if nothing like that, we'll see each other at Stahleck.